21 black celebrities who died from overdoses. They had fame, fortune, and millions of fans. But for these black stars, one fatal encounter with drugs changed everything. From music icons who ruled the charts to beloved actors and young rappers whose careers were only beginning their final chapters, reveal a devastating side of celebrity life. Some fought addiction for years. Others died after dangerous combinations or substances involving fentanyl turned deadly, and several were gone at ages when their greatest work may still have been ahead of them. Which loss shocked you the most? Tell us in the comments before we reach number 1. Subscribe to Golden Black Legends, because today we uncover 21 heartbreaking stories where extraordinary talent met a tragically premature ending. Michael K. Williams. Michael K. Williams built a career around characters who seemed impossible to forget. With the distinctive scar across his face and an intensity that could command a scene without a word, the Brooklyn-born actor became internationally recognized as Omar Little on HBO's The Wire. Later performances in Boardwalk, Empire, Lovecraft Country, and When They See Us further demonstrated his extraordinary range. Yet behind those achievements was a private struggle that made his final chapter especially painful. Williams had spoken publicly about his history of addiction rather than pretending that fame had erased it. His openness made what happened in September 2021 even more devastating. On September 6th, Williams was found dead inside his Brooklyn apartment. He was only 54 years old. His death was officially ruled accidental, caused by acute intoxication involving fentanyl, p-fluorofentanyl, heroin, and cocaine. The tragedy did not end with the toxicology findings. Federal investigators determined that Williams had purchased heroin on September 5th that was laced with fentanyl and a fentanyl analog. Prosecutors later charged members of the drug trafficking organization connected to the sale. Irvin Cartagena, the man identified by federal authorities as having sold Williams the fatal drugs, pleaded guilty in 2023 and was ultimately sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. That confirmed evidence makes Williams' story particularly haunting. There is no need to invent dramatic details about his final moments. The documented facts are powerful enough. Michael K. Williams left behind far more than the circumstances of his death. He left performances filled with humanity, vulnerability, and unforgettable presence. But his death also became a stark example of how fentanyl can turn an already dangerous encounter with drugs into a fatal one. A celebrated actor had survived years of personal battles only for one final encounter to end an extraordinary life far too soon. Juice WRLD. Juice WRLD seemed destined to become one of his generation's defining voices. Born Jared Anthony Higgins, the Chicago area rapper transformed anxiety, heartbreak, and emotional vulnerability into music that connected with millions of young listeners. His 2018 breakout hit, Lucid Dreams, reached number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, while albums such as Goodbye and Good Riddance and Death Race for Love turned him into an international star. Yet his meteoric rise was accompanied by a dangerous struggle with drugs that he sometimes addressed openly in his lyrics. That struggle reached its devastating conclusion on December 8, 2019. Juice WRLD had just arrived at Chicago's Midway International Airport aboard a private aircraft when he suffered a medical emergency. Authorities said he experienced convulsions and was transported to Advocate Christ Medical Center, where he was pronounced dead. He had turned 21 only 6 days earlier. The Cook County Medical Examiner later provided the crucial answer. Higgins died from oxycodone and codeine toxicity, and his death was officially ruled an accident. The finding firmly places his case among celebrity deaths caused by accidental drug overdose rather than rumor or internet speculation. The timing made the loss particularly painful. Juice WRLD was already enormously successful, but his career had barely begun. He had earned billions of streams and helped popularize an emotionally exposed style of melodic hip-hop that blurred the boundaries between rap, rock, and emo. His death therefore carries a disturbing contradiction. Through his songs, Juice WRLD repeatedly explored substance use, depression, heartbreak, and self-destructive impulses, almost as though listeners were hearing pieces of an unfolding warning. Then at just 21, the dangers surrounding those themes became tragically real. His catalog continued, reaching huge audiences after his death, ensuring that his voice never disappeared. But behind those streaming numbers remains a sobering truth. One of hip-hop's brightest young talents was gone before the world discovered how far his creativity might have taken him. Rick James. Rick James lived with the volume turned all the way up. The Buffalo-born musician became one of funk's most electrifying personalities, combining outrageous charisma, rebellious energy, and undeniable musical ability. Super Freak, Give It To Me Baby, and other hits transformed him into a superstar during the early 1980s. Behind that flamboyant image, however, substance abuse increasingly consumed parts of his personal and professional life. James never concealed that his relationship with drugs had become extreme. Cocaine use, particularly during the darkest periods of his career, contributed to legal problems and years of instability. Although he eventually attempted to rebuild his life and return to performing, decades of excess had already placed tremendous pressure on his health. On August 6, 2004, James was discovered dead at his Los Angeles home. He was 56. The toxicology findings revealed a complicated picture. Multiple drugs were detected in his system, including cocaine, methamphetamine, diazepam, hydrocodone, and other medications. However, accuracy matters here. Describing his death simply as a straightforward cocaine overdose would leave out important medical facts. The Los Angeles County coroner determined that James died from acute cardiac and pulmonary failure with numerous underlying health conditions. The substances in his system were considered contributing factors, and the death was ruled accidental. Therefore, his case belongs in a discussion of drug-related celebrity deaths. But the distinction between contributing drug intoxication and a single substance overdose should remain clear. That nuance does not make his ending less tragic. Only decades earlier, Rick James had been standing before roaring audiences, turning funk into something theatrical, provocative, and impossible to ignore. By 2004, his body carried the consequences of an extraordinarily turbulent life. James left behind music that still fills dance floors today, yet his final chapter remains inseparable from the excesses that followed him for years. A painful reminder that surviving addiction's most chaotic periods does not always mean escaping their long-term consequences. Gangsta Boo. Gangsta Boo earned respect in a hip-hop world where women often had to fight twice as hard to command the same attention. Born Lola Chantrell Mitchell in Memphis, Tennessee, she joined 3-6 Mafia while still a teenager and became one of the pioneering female voices of Southern rap. Her aggressive delivery and unmistakable Memphis sound helped shape records that would influence generations of artists long after the group's earliest releases. Even after leaving 3-6, Mafia, Gangsta Boo remained deeply connected to hip-hop. She released solo material, collaborated across generations, and watched the Memphis sound she helped pioneer become increasingly influential in mainstream rap. At 43, she was still recording and planning new music. Then came January 1, 2023. Gangsta Boo was found unresponsive at a residence in Memphis. Her sudden death immediately produced speculation online, but later medical findings provided a much clearer account. According to the autopsy information reported after her death, she died from an accidental overdose involving fentanyl, cocaine, and alcohol. That finding makes her inclusion in a story about fatal drug overdoses strongly supported by documented evidence. Fentanyl is particularly significant. The synthetic opioid has become a major driver of overdose fatalities in the United States, and its presence in the illicit drug supply means people may encounter it in circumstances where they do not fully understand what they are consuming. For Gangsta Boo's fans, however, statistics cannot capture what disappeared that day. She was more than a former member of 3-6 Mafia. She had helped establish a blueprint for women in Southern hip-hop, bringing confidence and menace to records at a time when relatively few female rappers were being given comparable space. Her death at only 43 ended another chapter of Memphis music far too early. But Gangsta Boo's influence survived her. Every new generation discovering the dark, hypnotic sound of early Memphis rap encounters, traces of a woman who helped build it and whose final ending demonstrated how unforgiving modern drug toxicity can be. Prince. Prince spent decades appearing almost superhuman. The Minneapolis-born virtuoso could sing, dance, compose, produce and play numerous instruments, while albums such as 1999, Purple Rain and Sign of the Times made him one of popular music's most influential artists. He sold more than 100 million records worldwide by widely cited estimates and won 7 Grammy Awards. Yet on April 21, 2016, the seemingly unstoppable performer was found unresponsive inside an elevator at Paisley Park. Prince was 57. The official investigation removed much of the uncertainty surrounding the medical cause. The Midwest Medical Examiner's Office determined that Prince died from fentanyl toxicity and classified his death as an accident. According to the medical examiner, he had self-administered fentanyl, an extremely powerful synthetic opioid. Investigators subsequently discovered something especially troubling. Counterfeit pills recovered from Paisley Park were made to resemble legitimate hydrocodone medication but contained fentanyl. Authorities could not establish beyond the required legal standard exactly how Prince obtained the counterfeit medication or whether he knew it contained fentanyl. That distinction is essential. Claims that he knowingly sought fentanyl should not be presented as established fact. His death became even more heartbreaking because help appeared close. Only days earlier, Prince's private plane had made an emergency landing in Illinois after he became seriously ill. On the morning he died, representatives connected to addiction specialist Dr. Howard Kornfeld were attempting to arrange assistance for him, but intervention came too late. Prince's death shocked generations because it collided so violently with his public image. This was the artist who seemed capable of controlling every note, every movement, and virtually every aspect of his career. Yet one hidden danger proved impossible to control. The world lost Prince in a matter of moments, but his music survived, from the opening chords of Purple Rain to performances that still feel electrifying decades later. His fatal fentanyl exposure remains one of modern music's most sobering tragedies. Old Dirty Bastard. Old Dirty Bastard was never designed to be predictable. Born Russell Tyrone Jones, the Brooklyn rapper became one of Wu-Tang Clan's most recognizable personalities, delivering verses with a wild mixture of humor, rawness, melody, and apparent chaos. When Wu-Tang emerged during the 1990s, ODB sounded unlike almost anyone else. His solo records, including Shimmy Shimmy Ya and Brooklyn Zoo, only strengthened that reputation. But the unpredictability audiences found entertaining was accompanied by serious turmoil away from the microphone. Drug problems, arrests, legal battles, and periods of incarceration increasingly overshadowed his music. By 2004, ODB was attempting another comeback after his release from prison and had signed with Rockefeller Records. He never got the opportunity to complete it. On November 13, 2004, Old Dirty Bastard collapsed at a recording studio in Manhattan. Emergency personnel responded, but he could not be revived. He was pronounced dead at the scene just 2 days before his 36th birthday. The subsequent medical findings were clear. His death was ruled an accident caused by acute intoxication from the combined effects of cocaine and tramadol, a prescription opioid pain medication. He was only 35. Those facts are more powerful than the exaggerated stories that sometimes surround his final hours. ODB's death was not merely another outrageous episode in an already chaotic biography. It was the irreversible ending of a genuine musical original. The tragedy also arrived at a moment when his future appeared to be opening again. After years dominated by legal and personal problems, he had returned to recording and was preparing new material. Instead, Wu-Tang Clan lost one of its founding members, and hip-hop lost a voice that could never truly be duplicated. Old Dirty Bastard built his identity around having no father to his style, because as the famous explanation went, his sound was uniquely his own. In the end, that may be the most fitting description of his legacy: chaotic, flawed, influential, and completely unmistakable. Coolio. Coolio became one of the most recognizable voices of 1990s hip-hop, but behind the playful personality and unforgettable hairstyle was an artist whose life would end with a modern danger that has claimed thousands of Americans. Born artist Leon Ivy Jr., the California rapper broke through with Fantastic Voyage before reaching another level with Gangsta's Paradise. The 1995 single became a worldwide phenomenon and earned him a Grammy Award for Best Rap Solo Performance. Decades later, Coolio was still performing and introducing those songs to new audiences. Then on September 28, 2022, everything stopped. Coolio was visiting a friend in Los Angeles when he was found unresponsive. Paramedics were called, but he was pronounced dead at the scene. He was 59 years old. Initial reports could not establish exactly what had happened, so speculation spread quickly. Months later, the medical findings provided a clearer answer. According to the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner, Coolio died from the effects of fentanyl, heroin, and methamphetamine, and his death was classified as accidental. Cardiomyopathy, asthma, and recent phencyclidine use were also identified as significant contributing conditions. That distinction matters. His death was not merely a vague case of drug-related complications. Multiple powerful substances were involved in the fatal event. The tragedy was especially striking because Coolio had survived the turbulent decades when hip-hop itself transformed from an emerging culture into a global industry. His biggest song had already outlived the era that created it, yet his own life ended suddenly. Coolio left behind children, friends, collaborators, and generations of listeners who could recognize Gangsta's Paradise within seconds. His death at 59 added another painful name to the growing history of artists lost to fatal drug toxicity, while his music ensured that the voice behind one of the 1990s defining rap records would continue to be heard. David Ruffin. David Ruffin possessed the kind of voice that could make heartbreak sound magnificent. As one of the defining lead singers of The Temptations, his gritty, emotionally charged, delivery-powered classics, including My Girl, Ain't Too Proud to Beg, and I Wish It Would Rain. During Motown's golden era, Ruffin appeared to have everything: talent, recognition, and a voice millions could identify almost instantly, but success did not protect him from addiction. Ruffin's increasingly difficult behavior and drug use contributed to turmoil during his career, and he was dismissed from The Temptations in 1968. He continued recording as a solo performer and later reunited with former colleagues, but cocaine remained a destructive presence in his life. On June 1, 1991, Ruffin died in Philadelphia at only 50 years old. Accounts surrounding his final hours have sometimes become sensationalized, so the strongest version of his story should remain anchored to what authorities established. Ruffin was taken to the hospital of the University of Pennsylvania after becoming unresponsive. The Philadelphia Medical Examiner determined that his death was accidental and attributed it to an adverse reaction to cocaine. That confirmed finding makes Ruffin directly relevant to a story about black entertainers whose lives ended because of drugs. His death was heartbreaking, partly because his voice had survived so much. Ruffin had endured dismissal from one of America's greatest vocal groups, career fluctuations, and years of personal instability. Even after those setbacks, audiences still remembered what happened whenever he stepped toward a microphone. Then addiction finally took something that fame could not restore. David Ruffin's legacy should never be reduced to the circumstances of his death. He helped create recordings that became permanent pieces of American music. Yet his final chapter reveals the devastating contrast between public brilliance and private vulnerability. The man whose voice helped make The Temptations immortal could conquer a stage, but the struggle away from it proved far more difficult to escape. A$AP Yams. A$AP Yams rarely needed to stand at the center of the stage to change what happened on it. Born Steven Rodriguez in Harlem, he became the visionary co-founder of the A$AP Mob, and played a crucial role in shaping the early career of A$AP Rocky. Yams understood internet culture, regional rap styles, branding, and audience behavior at a time when those worlds were rapidly colliding. His influence helped turn a Harlem collective into an internationally recognized movement. By his mid-20s, Yams had already accomplished what many music executives spent decades pursuing. But his relationship with drugs was not entirely hidden. He had discussed substance use publicly, and those struggles became particularly significant after his sudden death. On January 18, 2015, A$AP Yams was found unresponsive in Brooklyn. He was transported to Woodhull Medical Center, where he was pronounced dead. He was only 26. In the weeks that followed, conflicting assumptions circulated about what killed him. The official medical finding eventually provided the answer. New York City's medical examiner determined that Yams died from acute mixed drug intoxication, including opiates and benzodiazepines. His death was ruled accidental. Those findings are important because they separate the documented cause from the mythology that can develop after a young celebrity dies unexpectedly. Yams' death shook A$AP Mob at precisely the moment its cultural influence was expanding. A$AP Rocky lost not simply a colleague, but one of the architects who had recognized his potential and helped construct the environment in which that potential could flourish. Yams never reached 27, yet influence cannot always be measured by longevity. His fingerprints remained across the aesthetics, collaborations, and business instincts of the collective he helped create. The annual Yams Day celebration subsequently became part tribute, part continuation of his cultural vision. His story remains painfully unfinished, a young strategist who helped predict where hip-hop was heading but whose own future disappeared after an accidental combination of drugs ended his life far too early. Gerald Levert. Gerald Levert inherited a remarkable musical legacy, then built one powerful enough to stand independently from it. Born in Canton, Ohio, and raised in the Cleveland area, Gerald was the son of Eddie Levert, the commanding lead vocalist of the O'Jays. Rather than simply living under his father's reputation, Gerald developed his own muscular, passionate R&B sound first with Levert, and later as a successful solo artist. The group scored major records, including Casanova, while Gerald's solo career produced songs such as Baby Hold On To Me and established him as one of contemporary R&B's most distinctive vocalists. He also wrote and produced for other artists and later joined Keith Sweat and Johnny Gill in the supergroup LSG. Then on November 10, 2006, the music stopped unexpectedly. Gerald Levert was found dead at his home near Cleveland. He was just 40 years old, an age confirmed in contemporary reporting. His death initially shocked fans because no definitive cause was immediately announced. The subsequent coroner's findings transformed the story. Levert's death was ruled accidental and attributed to acute intoxication involving a combination of prescription and over-the-counter medications. Reports identified substances that included narcotic pain medications and other drugs. Authorities found no indication that his death was intentional. That detail is crucial. Gerald Levert's case demonstrates that a fatal drug combination does not necessarily involve illegal narcotics or deliberate reckless behavior. Medications can become dangerous when their combined effects overwhelm the body. His death also produced a devastating family tragedy. His father, Eddie Levert, had watched Gerald grow from a young singer carrying a famous surname into an acclaimed artist with his own audience. At 40, Gerald should have had years of recording ahead of him. Instead, an accidental combination of medications silenced one of R&B's strongest voices, leaving his recordings and that unmistakable Levert power as the enduring reminder of everything he had already achieved. Phyllis Hyman. Phyllis Hyman could turn loneliness into something beautiful. With her commanding presence and deep, elegant contralto, she became one of sophisticated R&B and soul's most distinctive voices. Songs such as "You Know How to Love Me," "Living All Alone," and "Don't Wanna Change the World" revealed an artist capable of expressing vulnerability without sacrificing strength. Her talent also reached Broadway, where her performance in Sophisticated Ladies earned her a Tony Award nomination in 1981. But the confidence audiences witnessed on stage concealed serious personal struggles. Hyman experienced prolonged emotional difficulties during her life, making her final years considerably darker than the glamorous image surrounding her career suggested. Accuracy matters here because sensationalized versions of her death sometimes invent conversations or romantic incidents immediately preceding it that cannot be reliably established. On June 30, 1995, Hyman was found unconscious inside her New York City apartment hours before she was scheduled to perform at the Apollo Theater. She was transported to a hospital but died later that day. She was 45 years old, only days away from her 46th birthday. Her death was determined to have resulted from an intentional overdose involving prescription medication and was ruled a suicide, not an accidental overdose. That distinction is essential when telling her story. Hyman belongs within a broader discussion of celebrities whose deaths involved fatal drug overdoses, but her circumstances should never be misrepresented simply to create a more dramatic narrative. Her final chapter was heartbreaking, yet it should not eclipse her accomplishments. Phyllis Hyman left behind recordings filled with extraordinary emotional depth, and decades later listeners continue discovering the power hidden inside that unmistakable voice. She died at only 45, but the music survived. In those songs, Hyman remains exactly where generations remember her: elegant, vulnerable, powerful, and capable of transforming private pain into unforgettable art. Mac Miller. Mac Miller's transformation happened before millions of listeners. Born Malcolm James McCormick in Pittsburgh, he emerged as an energetic teenage rapper before developing into an increasingly sophisticated musician, producer, and songwriter. His 2011 debut album, Blue Slide Park, entered the Billboard 200 at number 1, but Miller refused to remain trapped inside his youthful image. Albums, including Watching Movies with the Sound of the Divine Feminine and Swimming, revealed a more introspective artist willing to explore vulnerability, relationships, addiction, and emotional uncertainty. Miller had spoken publicly about substance use, making his sudden death especially painful. On September 7, 2018, he was found unresponsive at his home in Studio City, California. Emergency responders pronounced him dead at the scene. He was only 26 and Swimming had been released barely a month earlier. The Los Angeles County Medical Examiner later determined that Miller died from accidental mixed drug toxicity involving fentanyl, cocaine, and alcohol. The subsequent federal investigation uncovered an even darker detail. Prosecutors said counterfeit oxycodone pills supplied to Miller contained fentanyl. Men involved in supplying the drugs were later convicted and sentenced to federal prison. His death became a devastating illustration of the danger posed by counterfeit pills. Fentanyl can be far more potent than the substance a person believes they are taking, turning one encounter into an irreversible tragedy. What makes Miller's story particularly heartbreaking is how unfinished his artistic journey feels. Swimming later received a Grammy nomination, while the posthumous album Circles revealed another evolution in his songwriting and musicianship. Mac Miller died before reaching 27, but he had already traveled remarkably far from the teenager who first captured Pittsburgh's attention. His final years suggested an artist still discovering what he could become. The overdose ended that journey, while his increasingly personal music preserved the voice of a young man who was still changing. Ike Turner. Ike Turner occupies one of the most complicated places in American music history. Born Isaiah Luster Turner Jr. in Mississippi, he became a musician, band leader, producer, and talent scout during rock and roll's formative years. He played piano on Jackie Branston's 1951 recording Rocket, 88, frequently cited as an early landmark of rock. Later, the Ike and Tina Turner Revue became famous for its explosive performances, placing Turner at the center of another influential chapter in popular music. Yet musical achievement cannot erase the darker reality of his life. Tina Turner publicly documented severe domestic abuse during their marriage, while Ike struggled for decades with cocaine addiction. His drug problems contributed to legal trouble, and he eventually served prison time. Remarkably, Turner later rebuilt part of his musical career, and his 2006 album, Risin' with the Blues, won a Grammy for Best Traditional Blues Album. That comeback made what happened next particularly striking. On December 12, 2007, Turner was found dead at his home in San Marcos, California. He was 76 years old. The San Diego County Medical Examiner subsequently determined that cocaine toxicity caused his death. Hypertensive cardiovascular disease and pulmonary emphysema were identified as other significant conditions, and the death was classified as accidental. After surviving decades of addiction controversy, imprisonment and professional collapse, cocaine remained present at the very end. It was a grim conclusion to a life already defined by extraordinary contradictions. Ike Turner's legacy therefore demands honesty rather than celebration without context. His contributions to early rock, blues, and R&B were significant, while the harm associated with his personal behavior was equally real. At 76, his turbulent journey finally ended not on stage, but through the same substance that had haunted much of his adult life. Chris Kelly experienced extraordinary fame while most teenagers were still discovering who they wanted to become. Known as Mac Daddy, he formed Criss Cross with Chris Daddy Mac Smith after producer Jermaine Dupri discovered the Atlanta duo. Their 1992 single, Jump, exploded across America, spending 8 weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Their unusual fashion statement, wearing clothes backward, became a nationwide craze, turning two young rappers into symbols of early 1990s pop culture. But childhood superstardom proved difficult to sustain. As musical trends changed, Criss Cross gradually disappeared from mainstream attention, although Jump remained instantly recognizable. In February 2013, Kelly and Smith reunited for So So Def's 20th anniversary concert in Atlanta. For longtime fans, seeing Mac Daddy performing again felt like an unexpected return to their youth. Less than 3 months later, tragedy struck. On May 1, 2013, Kelly was found unresponsive at his Atlanta area home. Emergency responders transported him to a hospital where he was pronounced dead. He was just 34 years old. His sudden passing initially produced questions about what could have ended such a young life. The Fulton County Medical Examiner eventually determined that Kelly died from a drug overdose involving multiple substances, and his death was ruled accidental. Contemporary reports also stated that his mother told investigators he had used cocaine and heroin before his death. The official findings confirmed that substance use, not an unexplained illness, had brought his life to a devastating conclusion. The contrast remains difficult to forget. In 1992, Kelly had represented youthful excitement bouncing across television screens while millions copied his backward clothing. 21 years later, he was gone before reaching 35. Chris Kelly's ending was tragic, but his legacy still carries joy. Whenever Jump begins playing, Mac Daddy returns for a few minutes, young, energetic, and forever connected to one unforgettable era of hip-hop. Frankie Lymon became a star before he was old enough to understand the dangers surrounding fame. Born in Harlem, New York, he was only 13 when Frankie Lymon and the Teenagers exploded onto the music scene with Why Do Fools Fall in Love in 1956. His youthful soprano and charismatic performances made him one of America's earliest black teenage pop sensations. Suddenly, a boy from New York was touring, appearing on television, and hearing his voice played across the country. But success disappeared almost as rapidly as it arrived. As Lyman grew older and his voice changed, the momentum behind his career weakened. His departure from the teenagers failed to produce lasting solo success. More dangerously, heroin entered his life while he was still remarkably young. Arrests and repeated attempts to escape addiction followed, turning what had begun as a remarkable success story into a painful struggle. By early 1968, however, Lyman appeared to have another opportunity. After serving in the US Army, he returned to New York and was preparing to restart his recording career. A new session had been arranged, offering him a chance to rebuild what years of addiction had damaged. He never made it. On February 27, 1968, Frankie Lyman was found dead at his grandmother's home in Harlem. He was only 25 years old. His death was attributed to an accidental heroin overdose, making the connection between his addiction and his final moments tragically clear. Lyman's story remains especially haunting because everything happened so early. He became famous at 13 and was dead at 25, an entire rise and fall compressed into barely more than a decade. Yet why do Fools Fall in Love survived? Every time that youthful voice returns through the recording, listeners hear Frankie before addiction and disappointment overwhelmed his life. A gifted teenager standing at the beginning of what once seemed like an unlimited future. DMX. DMX sounded as though every verse carried a piece of his life. Born Earl Simmons, the New York rapper turned a rough childhood, anger, spirituality, and vulnerability into an unmistakable musical identity. In 1998, his first two albums, It's Dark and Hell is Hot and Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood, both debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200. His first 5 studio albums ultimately achieved that distinction, establishing an extraordinary commercial run. Behind the roaring performances, however, Simmons lived with a long and publicly documented struggle involving substance addiction. He entered rehabilitation multiple times and spoke about how early exposure to drugs affected his life. His faith remained another powerful force, creating the striking contradiction fans heard throughout his music: aggression followed by prayers, darkness constantly wrestling with redemption. On April 2, 2021, DMX suffered a catastrophic medical emergency at his home in White Plains, New York. He was hospitalized and placed on life support. For approximately a week, his family, friends, and fans waited while his condition remained critical. DMX died on April 9, 2021, at age 50. The exact wording surrounding his death requires care. His family did not initially release a detailed toxicology report. Later reporting, based on information attributed to the Westchester County Medical Examiner, described his official cause as cardiac arrest resulting from acute cocaine intoxication, which caused severe loss of oxygen to his brain. Therefore, exaggerated claims about specific quantities or unconfirmed drug combinations should be avoided. His death ended one of hip-hop's most turbulent careers, but addiction never completely defined Earl Simmons. He was also an actor, father, performer, and artist capable of expressing extraordinary emotional vulnerability. DMX spent decades rapping about battles that sounded almost impossible to win. At 50, one of those battles finally ended his life, but the unmistakable growl, prayers, pain, and intensity preserved in his music remain impossible to silence. Dinah Washington. Dinah Washington earned the title Queen of the Blues, but no single genre could contain her voice. Born Ruth Lee Jones in Alabama and raised in Chicago, she moved effortlessly through jazz, blues, R&B, and popular standards. Beginning her professional rise during the 1940s, Washington became one of the most successful black female recording artists of her era. Her interpretation of What a Difference a Day Makes became a major crossover hit in 1959 and earned her a Grammy Award. Success, however, existed alongside a turbulent personal life. Washington was known for her forceful personality, multiple marriages, and relentless career schedule. By the early 1960s, she had already achieved more than many singers accomplish across an entire lifetime. Tragically, there would be very little time left to enjoy it. On December 14, 1983, Washington was found unresponsive at her Detroit home by her husband, professional football player Dick "Night Train" Lane. She was only 39 years old. Her sudden death shocked the entertainment world because she remained a major recording star with seemingly many years ahead of her. The medical findings established that Washington died from an accidental overdose involving secobarbital and amobarbital, powerful barbiturate medications. This documented determination makes her death directly relevant to the history of entertainers lost through fatal drug intoxication. Claims that her death resulted from some mysterious conspiracy are unnecessary when the established medical evidence provides a clear explanation. The cruelest element of Washington's story is its timing. She had been performing professionally since her teenage years, yet never reached 40. Her influence, however, proved far more durable than her lifespan. Dinah Washington helped establish a standard of vocal interpretation that influenced generations of singers who followed. The woman died in 1963, but the Queen never truly disappeared. Her recordings preserved the commanding voice that made Heartbreak sound, Sophisticated Desire sound fearless, and a 3-minute song feel like an entire lifetime. Big Scar. Big Scar had barely begun to experience success when his life ended. Born Alexander Woods in Memphis, Tennessee, he emerged from the city's thriving rap scene with a deep voice and imposing delivery that quickly caught the attention of Gucci Mane. After signing with Gucci's 1017 Records, Scar gained wider recognition through tracks such as So Icy Boys and collaborations with Pooh Shiesty and Fugiano. His 2021 mixtape Big Grim Reaper reached the Billboard 200, signaling that his career was moving rapidly upward. Scar's life had already included frightening encounters with death. As a teenager, he survived a serious car accident that left visible scars, inspiring part of his stage name. He later survived being shot. Those experiences became part of the hardened persona surrounding his music, yet neither would ultimately claim his life. On December 22, 2022, Big Scar died in Memphis. He was only 22 years old. His death stunned fans and fellow artists, especially because he was preparing for another major stage in his career and had been announced for Key Glock's upcoming tour. His family publicly said that Scar died following an accidental prescription drug overdose. However, accuracy requires an important distinction. Unlike cases with publicly available detailed medical examiner findings, extensive toxicology information about Scar's death has not been released publicly. Therefore, claims naming exact drugs or quantities should not be presented as established facts without stronger documentation. That restraint does not make the tragedy less devastating. At 22, Scar had already survived circumstances that could have ended his life much earlier, only to die just as his music was reaching a larger audience. Big Scar left behind an unfinished catalog and an unanswered question familiar to many young artists: lost too soon. How far could he have gone? His career never had enough time to provide the answer. Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix changed the possibilities of the electric guitar in only a few extraordinary years. Born in Seattle, Washington, he spent time as a backing musician before moving to London in 1966 and forming the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Records including Purple Haze, Hey Joe, and Voodoo Child's Slight Return revealed a guitarist who treated distortion feedback and studio technology as creative instruments. His performance at Woodstock in 1969 only strengthened his status as a defining figure of the era. But Hendrix's spectacular rise unfolded amid the excesses of late 1960s rock culture. His exhausting schedule, complicated relationships, alcohol consumption, and drug use became part of an increasingly turbulent life. By September 1970, he was still internationally famous and creatively ambitious, but he would never reach his 28th birthday. On September 13, 1970, Hendrix was found unresponsive in London after spending the night with Monica Dannemann. He was taken by ambulance to St. Mary Abbots Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. He was 27 years old, placing him among the famous musicians later associated with the so-called 27 Club. The official inquest determined that Hendrix died from asphyxia while intoxicated with barbiturates, after taking sleeping tablets. Evidence indicated that he had taken significantly more than the recommended amount. Alcohol was also present. The coroner returned an open verdict because the evidence could not establish exactly how or why he had taken the fatal quantity. That nuance matters. Hendrix's death should not be embellished with invented descriptions of his final thoughts or treated as a proven intentional overdose. His career lasted only a fraction of the time enjoyed by many musical legends, yet his influence became enormous. Hendrix died at 27 before anyone could know where his experimentation would lead next. The man disappeared in 1970. The sound did not. More than half a century later, guitarists are still chasing possibilities Hendrix discovered before most of them were born. Shock G. Shock G was one of hip-hop's most imaginative architects, a musician who could make audiences laugh while quietly shaping an entire generation. Born Gregory Edward Jacobs, he became the driving creative force behind Digital Underground and created the unforgettable Humpty Hump persona. The group's 1990 hit, The Humpty Dance, became a rap classic, but Jacobs was far more than a novelty performer. As a producer, rapper, pianist, and band leader, he helped build Digital Underground's distinctive Parliament Funkadelic-inspired sound and played an important role in the early career of Tupac Shakur. As the decades passed, Shock G gradually retreated from mainstream attention, although his influence remained unmistakable. Then on April 22, 2021, he was found unresponsive in a hotel room in Tampa, Florida. He was only 57. The unexpected news stunned longtime fans who remembered his humor, musical intelligence, and larger-than-life performances. Months later, the Hillsborough County medical examiner revealed the crucial facts surrounding his death. Shock G died from an accidental overdose involving fentanyl, methamphetamine, and alcohol. The official determination removed the need for speculation. Multiple substances had combined with fatal consequences. His death became another painful example of the enormous danger surrounding fentanyl and polysubstance use in America. Yet reducing Gregory Jacobs to the way he died would overlook everything he created. Digital Underground brought funk, comedy, musicianship, and eccentric theatricality into hip-hop during an era of extraordinary experimentation. Shock G also recognized talent in others, giving Tupac an important platform before the young rapper became a global icon. At 57, Shock G's story ended far too abruptly, but every time the Humpty Dance fills a room, his playful spirit returns. Behind the famous fake nose and outrageous character stood a gifted musician whose creativity helped change hip-hop and whose accidental overdose brought an unexpectedly tragic ending to an unforgettable life. Pimp C. Pimp C helped create a southern rap sound that eventually became impossible for mainstream hip-hop to ignore. Born Chad Lamont Butler in Texas, he formed UGK with Bernard "Bun" B. Freeman, combining blues, soul, heavy bass, and vivid street storytelling. The duo built a devoted following before reaching larger audiences through appearances such as Jay-Z's Big Pimpin' and 3-6 Mafia's Sippin' on Some Syrup. Pimp C became not only a rapper but also a producer whose sound influenced generations of Southern artists. His career was interrupted when he served several years in prison following a probation violation. After his release in December 2005, anticipation surrounding UGK intensified. In 2007, the duo achieved a career milestone when Underground Kings debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200. After years of struggle, Pimp C appeared to have reached a new peak. Then everything stopped. On December 4, 2007, Pimp C was discovered dead in a room at the Mondrian Hotel in West Hollywood. He was only 33 years old. The Los Angeles County coroner determined that his death resulted from the combined effects of codeine and his pre-existing sleep apnea, and the death was classified as accidental. An important correction is necessary when describing his case as an overdose. Contemporary reporting on the coroner's findings noted that the amount of codeine detected was not considered an overdose by itself. Instead, the drug's respiratory depressant effects combined dangerously with sleep apnea. That distinction makes Pimp C different from straightforward fatal overdose cases. His death was unquestionably drug-related, but presenting it simply as he overdosed on codeine removes an important medical detail. Pimp C never lived to witness the full extent of UGK's influence. At 33, his voice disappeared just as Southern hip-hop was becoming dominant nationwide. What remained was a catalog and a sound that helped build the very movement that outlived him. From Prince and Michael K. Williams to Juice, URLD, Coolio, and countless others, these stories reveal a painful truth: fame, wealth, and extraordinary talent cannot always protect someone from the dangers of addiction and fatal drug exposure. Some battled substances for years, while others were caught in circumstances where one devastating combination proved irreversible. Yet their final moments should never erase the music performances and cultural impact they left behind. But now we want to hear from you. Which of these losses shocked you the most, and do you believe the entertainment industry does enough to protect struggling artists? Share your opinion in the comments and respectfully debate with other viewers. If you value stories that preserve the truth behind Black entertainment history, subscribe to Golden Black Legends for more unforgettable stories.